In the Atlanta suburbs, quiet can feel like luxury. Not the quiet of emptiness, the quiet of order. The kind of quiet that says, bills are paid, grass is cut, kids are safe, and nobody's slamming doors because somebody forgot to take out the trash. That's what Naya fell in love with first. Darius wasn't the type to turn a small thing into a storm. He didn't perform. He didn't puff up. He didn't talk just to fill air. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it was measured, like he was careful with words because he knew they could bruise. After Naya's last relationship, a man who argued like it was a sport, who could turn a good morning into a court case, Darius felt like stepping into shade on a hot day. They met at a neighborhood cookout in early spring, one of those Saturday afternoons where the sun is bright enough to be rude. Somebody's uncle had the grill going like it was a sacred duty. There were folding chairs, mismatched paper plates, and music loud enough to make the concrete patio vibrate. Nia arrived late because she was always late in those days, working too much, carrying too much, doing that thing women do when they try to stay strong by staying busy. Darius was posted up near the cooler, not center stage, not hidden, just present. He wore a plain black tee, clean sneakers, a watch that looked expensive but not showy. He wasn't the loudest man there. He wasn't trying to be. He watched. He noticed. When Naya reached for a drink and the lid of the cooler slipped, he steadied it with one hand. Quiet, smooth, like he'd been doing that his whole life. "Careful," he said. It wasn't flirtation. It was care. Nia glanced up, ready with her usual armor, sarcasm, smile, quick exit if needed. And Darius just looked at her, not like a man taking inventory, not like a man making plans, like a man recognizing something he'd been missing. "You good?" he asked. Nia laughed once. "I'm never good. I'm just functioning." He nodded, like that made sense. Functioning is underrated. She liked that he didn't try to fix her in 10 seconds. He didn't ask a million questions. He didn't act like her pain was a puzzle meant for his ego. He just handed her a bottle of water and said, "Hydrate. You look like you've been carrying the world." It was such a simple line, but it landed deep, because Nia had been carrying the world, and nobody had said it out loud in a way that didn't sound like a joke. Later, when the cookout started turning into that evening haze, kids running in circles, adults leaning into conversations like they were leaning into old songs, Darius ended up beside her again. "What's your story?" he asked. Nia made a face. "That's a big question." He shrugged. "We can start small. Favorite place in Atlanta?" Nia thought. "The grocery store aisle where nobody tries to talk to me." He smiled. Small, real. Respect. She found herself telling him things anyway. Not everything, but more than she meant to. That she grew up on the South Side and fought for every calm moment she ever got. That her mother loved her hard but worried even harder. That Naya was tired of men who treated love like a loud performance. Darius listened like he wasn't hunting for a moment to jump in. He listened like her words mattered. When she asked about him, he didn't tell a long, heroic story. He gave her pieces. Raised in Atlanta. Worked his way up in logistics. Quiet grind, steady climb. A man who had learned early that noise wasn't power. "My dad used to yell," he said once, like he was talking about weather. Like the whole house would hold its breath. Nia waited. Darius stared at the yard where kids were chasing each other with glow sticks. "I promised myself I wouldn't be that." "You don't seem like that," Nia said. He looked at her. "I try." Nia didn't know then that "I try" could mean two different things. I try to be peaceful, or I try not to feel. That night when Darius walked her to her car, he didn't go in for the dramatic move. No big speech. No leaning into her personal space like he owned it. He just said, "I'd like to see you again." Nia tilted her head. "You say that like it's a plan." Darius's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "It is." And the thing was, he didn't say it like a challenge. He said it like a promise. They dated the way stable couples date, intentional, slow enough to breathe, fast enough to feel like the world had finally stopped pushing back. Darius remembered little things, how Nia liked her coffee, sweet enough to be dangerous, how she hated being touched when she was overwhelmed, how she got quiet when she was hurt. Nia loved that Darius didn't compete with her. He didn't need to win the room. He didn't need to win her. He just showed up, consistently, like love was something you practiced. When he proposed, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't a stadium. It wasn't a sign. It was their kitchen, after dinner, with the dishes still in the sink. Nia had her hair wrapped up, wearing one of his shirts, looking soft in a way she rarely let herself be. Darius dried his hands, turned, and said, "I want a home with you." Nia blinked. "We have a home." He shook his head. "Not like I mean." Then he got down on one knee like he wasn't scared of the moment at all. Nia covered her mouth, eyes already hot. Darius looked up at her and said something that would become the center of everything later. "I won't hurt you." Nia whispered, "You can't promise that." Darius said, "I can promise I'll never hurt you on purpose." That felt like the most honest vow she'd ever heard. She said yes. They bought a house in the kind of suburb people brag about casually. Not mansion level, just clean. Nice. A place with sidewalks and a little park and neighbors who waved. They had 2 kids. Kayla first, bright and bossy and always asking why. Then Micah, softer, observant, the kind of child who could feel a mood shift before an adult even spoke. From the outside, their life looked like a commercial. Family photos. Saturday errands. Church some Sundays. Brunch other Sundays. Darius grilling in the backyard, music playing low, Nia laughing with that warm, full laugh that sounded like she'd finally unclenched. And for a while, it was real. The peace was real. That's the part that makes what happened later so confusing, because nobody starts out trying to become a weapon. They start out trying to survive. The first crack didn't come from cheating or money or betrayal. It came from something small. So small, it almost didn't count. Kayla was 7. She'd started having nightmares. Not every night, but enough that Nia was getting that tired feeling behind her eyes. The one that makes you feel like your brain is running on fumes. One night, Kayla padded into the room at 2:13 a.m., clutching her stuffed unicorn like it was a life raft. "Mommy," she whispered, "I had the bad dream again." Nia sat up immediately. She was already halfway out of bed before her mind caught up. Darius stirred beside her. He didn't sit up. He didn't ask what happened. He just rolled over, facing the wall. Nia paused. It wasn't that he had to get up every time. Parenting is teamwork, not scorekeeping, but something about the movement felt intentional, like withdrawal. Nia soothed Kayla, got her back to bed, rubbed her back until her breathing slowed. When Nia returned, she slid under the covers and whispered, "Babe, you okay?" Darius didn't answer. Nia waited. "Darius?" Silence. She stared at his back. The room was dim, but she could see the outline of him. Strong shoulders, still body, breath steady. He wasn't asleep. He was gone. Nia swallowed. "Did I do something?" Nothing. Nia felt heat rise under her skin. Not rage, not yet. Something sharper. A sudden fear that she was alone in the room with her husband. She turned toward the ceiling, blinking hard, trying not to make it a thing. The next day, everything was normal. Darius made breakfast, kissed her cheek, asked the kids about school. Nia watched him like she was watching a magician, like she was waiting to see where the trick was. Later, when the kids were out of earshot, she asked, carefully, "Last night, you didn't answer me." Darius looked up from the sink. "I was tired." Nia nodded. "Okay, but you didn't say anything." He shrugged. There was nothing to say. Something in Nia's chest tightened. "I asked if you were okay." Darius's jaw ticked once, tiny, controlled. "I'm fine," he said. The tone ended the conversation. It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it was final. And Nia, who had learned in life that emotional doors can lock quietly, felt something shift. She told herself it was nothing, because the house was still peaceful, because Darius still didn't yell, because her friends would have called her ungrateful if she complained. So she swallowed the weird feeling and kept building the dream. The thing about silence is that it changes shape depending on who's holding it. At first, Darius's quiet was soothing. It made Nia feel safe. It made her feel like home could be a place where voices didn't bounce off walls. But over time, Nia started noticing patterns. If Nia brought up a hard topic, his mother's habit of dropping by without calling first, the way he worked late without warning, the way he'd go emotionally flat after an argument, Darius didn't fight. He would shut down. No raised voice, no insults, just a slow retreat, like he was backing away from a fire, except Nia was the one getting burned. It started with little things. Nia, can you tell your mom to call first? Darius. Nia. Darius. Darius. Why is this a big deal? Nia. Because boundaries matter. Darius. And then the silence. The full silence. The kind that made the air feel heavy. Nia would chase the conversation at first because that's what people do when they feel a door closing. Don't do that, she'd say. Don't just shut down. Darius would stare at the TV, the phone, the wall, anything but her face. I'm not shutting down, he'd say finally, like she was accusing him of a crime. I just don't want to argue. But I'm not trying to argue, Nia would insist. And that was the loop. Darius believed conflict was danger. Nia believed silence was abandonment. They were both reacting to ghosts. They just didn't have the language yet to name them. The more Darius went quiet, the louder Nia got. Not because she loved yelling, but because volume felt like the only way to prove she existed. Because when somebody refuses to answer you, your nervous system starts screaming for proof that you're not invisible. One night, after the kids were asleep, Nia said, "Do you still like being married to me?" Darius didn't look at her. Nia felt the question sit between them like a live wire. Finally, Darius said, "Why would you ask that?" Nia laughed once, sharp, tired. "Because you treat me like I'm a task you don't want to do." Darius's shoulders rose slowly, then fell. He exhaled like she was asking him to lift a car. "I'm here, aren't I?" he said. That sentence, "I'm here, aren't I?" felt like a slap, because he was physically present, but emotionally, he was a locked room. Nia stared at him and said quietly, "Being in the house isn't the same as being with me." Darius's eyes flicked to her for half a second. Then he looked away again, and it wasn't loud, but it was brutal. From the outside, they were still the couple people admired. Darius was polite, calm, reliable, the kind of man who helped neighbors carry groceries without making it a show. Nia was warm, capable, the kind of woman who ran the PTA meeting like a CEO and still remembered everyone's birthdays. At school events, they stood close enough to look united. At cookouts, Darius grilled, Nia hosted. They laughed on cue. If you didn't live in the house, you'd never know the war was happening, because their war didn't have noise. It had absence. It had unanswered questions. It had the way Darius would respond to pain with a blank stare, and the way that blank stare made Nia feel like she was losing her mind. The fights became predictable. Nia brings up something real. Darius withdraws. Nia gets louder. Darius gets colder. Then the punishment. Silence for hours. Sometimes days. Darius wouldn't say, "I'm mad at you." He would simply become unreachable. He'd move through the house like a polite stranger. He'd wash dishes without looking at her. He'd answer the kids normally, then go flat again around Nia. It was the most confusing kind of cruelty because it came wrapped as peace. Nia started questioning herself. Was she too emotional? Was she asking for too much? Was she ruining a good man with her neediness? And Darius? Darius started telling himself a story, too, that Nia was always making something, that she liked drama, that if he stayed quiet, he was being the better person. He didn't realize that silence can be a weapon even when you don't call it one. One afternoon, Nia tried to talk about finances. Not because they were broke, but because she wanted transparency. She wanted partnership. She'd noticed Darius quietly moving money to a separate account for savings. He hadn't told her. He hadn't asked. He'd just done it. Nia waited until the kids were outside, then said, "Hey, I saw the transfer." Darius didn't look up from his phone. Okay. Nia hated that word now. Okay was the cousin of silence. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Darius shrugged. "It's for the house." Nia frowned. "We're married. I don't want to find things out like I'm auditing you." Darius's eyes lifted, cold, guarded. "So you want me to ask permission?" Nia blinked. "That's not what I said." Darius leaned back in his chair, arms crossing. The posture said, "Defense." The face said, "Done." Nia felt her throat tighten. "I'm asking for communication." Darius stared at her for a long moment, then said, "I don't want to have this conversation." Nia's voice rose without her permission. "Why not?" Darius's expression didn't change. "Because it's going to turn into you being upset." Nia laughed in disbelief. "I'm upset because you avoid everything like it's poison." Darius's jaw clenched. See? There it was. The trap. If Nia stayed calm, she swallowed herself. If she showed emotion, she proved his point. Nia felt tears prick her eyes. Anger, tears, not soft ones. "You don't fight fair," she said. Darius blinked. "I'm not fighting." "That's the point," Nia snapped. "You refuse to fight and you call that maturity, but it's just you disappearing and leaving me alone with everything." Darius stood up slowly, like he was putting distance between them to stay safe. "I'm not doing this," he said. Then he walked out of the room. Nia stood there shaking, staring at the space he'd left behind. She whispered, "You always leave." He didn't come back to answer. Micah was the first to notice. Kids always notice first. They don't have adult denial yet. One evening, after a long silent day, Micah climbed into Nia's lap while she was folding laundry. He watched her face with those careful eyes, then whispered, "Daddy mad?" Nia's hands froze on a tiny t-shirt. She forced a smile. "Daddy's not mad, baby." Micah tilted his head. "He quiet." Nia swallowed. "Daddy's just tired," she said. Micah nodded like he accepted it, but he didn't look convinced. Later, Kayla came in, older and sharper, and said, "Why do y'all act weird?" Nia tried to laugh. "We don't act weird." Kayla crossed her arms. "Yes, you do. Mommy talks and Daddy don't." Nia's stomach dropped, because Kayla wasn't describing a bad day. She was describing a pattern. Nia pulled Kayla close. "We're working on it." Kayla's voice was small, but it hit like a hammer. "It makes me nervous." Nia closed her eyes. That night, she approached Darius carefully, like you approach a sleeping animal. "We can't do this in front of them," she said. Darius looked up. "Do what?" "This," Nia said, gesturing vaguely. "The quiet, the shutting down, the vibe." Darius's mouth tightened. "So now I'm a bad father?" Nia shook her head quickly. No, that's not what I said." Darius's eyes hardened. "Feels like that's what you meant." Nia's hands curled into fists. "Why do you always twist it?" "I'm not twisting anything," he said, calm like ice. "I'm telling you what I hear." Nia stared at him, chest tight. "And you don't hear me. That's the problem." Darius said nothing. Just that familiar silence, dropping like a curtain. Nia felt herself crack. "Say something," she shouted, voice breaking. "Anything, even if it's ugly." Darius flinched, just a little, like her volume physically hurt. Then he looked away again. Nia stood there, trembling, tears spilling now, and Darius, still calm, said the cruelest sentence a quiet man can say. "I can't talk to you when you're like this, like hurt, like human." Nia whispered, "When I'm like what?" Darius didn't answer, and Nia realized he wasn't just avoiding conflict, he was avoiding accountability, because if he never engaged, he never had to admit he caused pain. By the time their anniversary arrived, 12 years married, Nia didn't know what she wanted anymore. She wanted Darius to hold her and say, "I get it." She wanted a conversation that didn't end with a wall. She wanted to feel like she had a husband, not a roommate with good manners. But she was tired. So tired that some mornings she'd sit in her car in the driveway for an extra 5 minutes before going inside, just to breathe without performing fine. The week of the anniversary, Darius was attentive. He asked what she wanted for dinner. He handled school drop-off without being asked. He even touched her shoulder gently as he passed. Small contact, like he was trying. Nia didn't trust it, but she wanted to. The night of the anniversary, Darius told her to get dressed. Babysitter was coming. Reservation was set. Nia stood in front of the mirror and put on a dress she hadn't worn in years, a deep color that made her feel like herself again. She did her makeup slowly, carefully, like the ritual might summon the old version of them. When she came downstairs, Darius was waiting in a suit. Clean, sharp, beautiful in that quiet way. He looked at her and said, "You look amazing." Nia's throat tightened. In the car, the city lights blurred past. They drove toward Buckhead, where the restaurants looked like luxury and the valet guys looked like they'd never had a real problem in their lives. The restaurant was perfect. Candlelight, soft music, a booth in the corner. Darius ordered her favorite drink without asking. Nia felt tears prick. Not because it was grand, but because it showed he still remembered her. During dessert, Darius slid a small box across the table. Nia's heart jumped. Inside was a necklace, delicate, gold, with 2 tiny charms, a K and an M. Their kids. It was tasteful, perfect, the kind of gift people post online. Nia stared at it, overwhelmed. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Darius nodded. "I wanted you to have something that stays." Nia looked up at him. "Thank you." For a moment, the world softened. Then the moment demanded something real. Nia took a breath. "Darius, can we talk?" His face shifted, small, almost invisible. The guard rising. Nia rushed before he could retreat. "Not a fight, just talk." Darius's fingers tightened around his glass. "About what?" Nia swallowed. "About us." Darius stared at her. Nia's voice shook, but she held it. "I've been lonely, in my own house, and I keep trying to reach you, and you keep disappearing." Darius's jaw moved once like he was chewing the words he wouldn't say. Nia leaned forward, eyes shining. "I miss you." Darius blinked, slow. "I'm right here." Nia flinched. "You're not emotionally." Darius's mouth tightened. "We're having a good night." Nia's laugh was soft and sad. "That's the point. We can have a good night and still be broken." Darius looked away toward the candles, toward the strangers, toward anywhere that wasn't her face. Nia felt panic rise. "Please don't do that. Don't leave the conversation." Darius's voice was low. "Nia, just hear me," she begged. "When you go silent, it feels like punishment." Darius exhaled, annoyed now. "I'm not punishing you. I'm avoiding a fight." Nia whispered, "But you're making me fight alone." Darius stared at the table. His calm was intact. Too intact. Like he'd built it out of concrete. Nia's voice cracked. "I need you to say you're sorry." Darius's head lifted slightly. "For what?" Nia's eyes widened. "For how you've made me feel." Darius's lips parted, then closed. Silence. That Thick, familiar silence that didn't look like violence but felt like it. Nia sat there, the perfect necklace box open like a joke. "Darius," she whispered. "Just say it." His eyes flicked to her, brief, uncomfortable, like her pain was too bright. "I can't," he said quietly. Nia froze. "You can't." "What?" "I can't say sorry when I don't feel like I did something wrong," he said. The words were calm. They were also a knife. Nia's breath shook. "So, you think I made all this up?" Darius's face remained controlled. "I think you're dramatic sometimes." Nia stared at him like she'd never seen him before. 12 years, 2 kids, a whole house full of memories. And this man, this quiet man she trusted because he didn't yell, was telling her her pain was drama. Nia's voice went dangerously soft. "Do you love me, Darius?" He answered immediately like a reflex. "Yes." Nia nodded slowly. "Then why can't you apologize when you hurt me?" Darius's throat worked. He looked trapped, cornered, because that was the truth. To apologize, he'd have to admit he hurt her. To admit he hurt her, he'd have to admit he wasn't the peaceful hero he believed himself to be. And Darius, who had built his identity on being not like his father, couldn't survive the idea that he might be doing damage too. So he chose what he always chose. Silence. Nia felt something inside her go still. She closed the necklace box gently. Too gently. Then she stood up. Darius looked up, startled. "Nia." Nia didn't raise her voice. That was the scariest part. "I don't want the gift," she said softly. "I want my husband." Darius stared at her, expression tight. "Sit down. People are looking." Nia glanced around. Nobody was looking. Nobody ever looked at quiet pain. She picked up her purse. Darius's voice sharpened. "Nia." She leaned in slightly, eyes wet, smile broken. "This marriage is beautiful on the outside." Darius blinked. Nia whispered, "But it's empty inside." And then she walked out of the restaurant alone. When Nia got home, she didn't slam the door. She didn't throw anything. She took off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, and sat down at the table like her body finally gave up. The house was so quiet it felt like a sound. The kids were asleep. The babysitter was gone. The clock ticked like it was counting something down. Darius came in 20 minutes later. He moved slowly, like he expected shouting. Nia didn't look up. Darius stood by the doorway. "So, you embarrassed me." Nia laughed softly. "That's what you heard?" Darius's jaw tightened. "You walked out." Nia stared at the table. "You walked out first. You always do. You just do it without moving." Darius went quiet. Nia finally looked up, eyes red but steady. "I can't do this anymore." Darius swallowed. "So what? You're leaving?" Nia shook her head. "I don't know." Darius's voice turned defensive. "I'm not a bad guy, Nia." Nia nodded slowly. "I know." That surprised him. He blinked. Nia continued, quiet but firm. "You're not a bad guy. You're a good man who doesn't know how to stay present when things get hard." Darius's eyes flickered with something. Fear, maybe. Shame. Nia whispered, "But you're still hurting me." Darius opened his mouth, closed it. The silence rose again. Automatic. Nia exhaled, exhausted. "There it is. That's what I mean." Darius's hands flexed at his sides. "I don't know what you want me to say." Nia stared at him. "Start with, 'I'm sorry.'" Darius's throat worked. His eyes went glossy like he was fighting something inside himself. And then, finally, he spoke. Not sorry. Something smaller. "I don't like feeling like I'm wrong," he admitted. Nia's breath caught. It was the closest thing to vulnerability he'd offered in months. She nodded slowly. "Me neither." Darius looked down. "When you get loud, it feels like my dad. Like the house isn't safe." Nia swallowed hard. And when you go silent, it feels like I don't exist. Darius looked up at her then. Really looked. Nia's voice shook. I can't keep screaming just to be heard. I hate who I become. Darius whispered, I hate who I become too. For the first time in a long time, the quiet between them wasn't punishment. It was grief. They sat there, two people who loved each other but had been speaking two different languages for years. Nia wiped her face. We need help. Darius flinched but didn't shut down. Nia leaned forward. Not to decide who's right, to learn how to stay in the room. Darius's eyes filled. He blinked it back, stubborn. Therapy? He asked like it was a foreign word. Nia nodded. Yes. Darius was silent for a long moment. Nia waited, heart pounding. Then Darius whispered, barely audible, I'll go. Nia's chest tightened. Really? He nodded once. Small. Real. I don't want the kids to grow up thinking this is normal, he said. Nia's eyes burned again. Me either. Here's what people don't tell you. Sometimes you don't get a neat ending. Sometimes you get a choice. Nia and Darius started therapy. Not the TV kind where one session fixes everything. The real kind, where you sit under bright office lights and say ugly truths out loud. They learned words like stonewalling. They learned that calm can be control. They learned that peace without intimacy is just loneliness with good manners. They set rules. If Darius feels overwhelmed, he has to say, I need 10 minutes. I'm coming back. If Nia feels unheard, she has to say, I'm getting loud because I'm scared. Please stay. No disappearing. No punishing silence. No exploding to break through a wall. Some weeks they did well. Some weeks they failed and cried in the car afterward, but they kept trying, because trying was the only way the house could become a home again. And still, even with effort, some marriages remain like that anniversary necklace, beautiful, symbolic, perfect for the outside world. But marriage isn't jewelry. Marriage is language. It's repair. It's showing up when you'd rather vanish. So the story ends in two possible ways, depending on what they choose next. Ending A. They learn to talk. The quiet becomes soft again. Not a weapon, just space. Ending B. They stay married in a house that looks peaceful, while the inside slowly empties out. No screaming, no scandal. Just two people living politely beside each other. Either way, the truth is the same. A house can be quiet, and still be a battlefield. And sometimes the loudest pain in the world is the pain nobody can hear.